So hello everyone, this is the Promotory channel. I'm starting to assemble another Maschinenfabrik Augsburg Nuremberg engine, another D2866, but this one is the LF04 as we can see, with 370 horsepower. So I don't have a disassembly video of this engine on my channel. It was brought to me already disassembled. And the assembly will be a bit unusual. I haven't had anything like this on my channel before. Everything will become clear as the video goes on. So, what has already been done with this engine? Well, obviously, as always, first I cleaned it, sent it for machining. Everything as usual. The mating surfaces, the cylinder head, the seating surfaces for the liners and the bearing beds, the main bearings in general, the beds for the main bearings. The block came back from machining. The block was at the machine shop for several months, but that was the agreement with the customer. It wasn't a rush job. So the block arrived to me. We can see 10.25. The machinists worked on it in the 10th month of 25. So now the block has come to me. As usual, I removed all the plugs and oil nozzles, blew out all the channels, cleaned everything, degreased everywhere, and also chased all the threads on the engine, every threaded hole. Well, in general, the block is already fully prepared for assembly. So what am I going to do now? The usual routine. I'm installing all the plugs and oil nozzles back in place. Then I'll immediately install the camshaft bushings and lifters. And we're going to have a new camshaft here. The packaging is over there. And let me remind you that this engine is for 370 horsepower. The camshafts for 370 horsepower and for 420 horsepower are different. Here I have the injectors prepared. I've blown them out, checked each one, and also prepared all the oil channel plugs, cleaned all of them as well. This is our timing gear, and this is our compressor drive gear. I've also checked everything, cleaned all the teeth, prepared the bolts, and I've already got the crankshaft ready, polished it here, cleaned the channels and blew them out. So I removed the old running ring for the oil seal, and now we'll install a new ring. It's been lying here for a few days now. As you can see, a bit of dust has settled on it, but I'll blow it off again and wipe it down once more before installation. That's a given. The crankshaft here is, you could say, in perfect condition. The only thing is, there are a few minor issues from when the engine was disassembled. Here you can see that some moisture got in between the shaft and the bearing, and there's a bit of corrosion. I'm not sure how well you can see it on camera. Well, of course, that's a downside for the crankshaft, but in practice, there's nothing too serious usually happens because of it. So I polished all of that. There aren't any sharp edges on those pits, and they're not deep, just a few hundredths of a millimeter. You can barely even feel them with your finger. But in any case, they're there, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's better to leave these traces of corrosion than to grind the crankshaft down to a repair size. That's my opinion. There will only be one episode about assembling this engine, and as the video goes on you'll see why that's the case. So that's the scope of work we have. Let's get started. Here we have a plug, so we unscrew this plug and underneath it there's another plug. So what's it for? There's one drilling from the top. Here oil comes in from the oil pickup, from the oil pump, and goes to the filter. So it goes down here and then goes to the filter and to the heat exchanger. This is the channel, And behind this plug is the oil channel that goes after the filter. If you unscrew this plug, well, I don't even know what will happen, where the oil will go. It probably won't have a directed flow, and it will just go into all the channels at once. It's really hard to say what would happen if you unscrew this plug, but I don't know. I don't think I've ever mentioned it in a video before, so I decided to talk about it now. So I've installed the bushings and checked that the oil holes line up with the oil channels. Here it turns out that the middle ones have 2 holes each. The crankshaft supplies oil to the camshaft, and from the camshaft to the cylinder head to the rocker arm. Here we have another supply hole for the fuel pump, so lubrication goes there as well. Well, on the first bushing on the pulley side, we have 2 holes. One supplies oil from the crankshaft to lubricate this bushing, and the second hole is for lubricating the compressor. So all the holes are lined up correct. Next, I install the tappets and then install the new camshaft. So the piston assembly will be new. I've already unpacked it for this engine. All the sleeves in the block without the rubber seals for now. The protrusion. And it's 0.08 to 0.09 millimeters everywhere, which is the upper limit. Well, I'll show it on camera a bit later, because once the rubber seals are on, it won't be visible anymore. The sleeve will stick out higher because this is a Machine and Fabric Augsburg Nuremberg sleeve. We use 2 rubber seals here. So I've already removed the piston rings from the pistons, went to the machine shop and took them off the bottom. The pistons are 0.25, 0.30 millimeters. We took off 0.25 millimeters from the block. Well, I usually take about the same amount of the pistons, about 0.2, 0.3 millimeters. We don't worry about hundreds here. So all the pistons have already been machined. Now, what am I doing next? I'm putting the piston rings back in place. Now I'll measure the thermal clearance in the cylinders, put the piston rings back on, weigh the piston with the rings and the pin, and also weigh it with the connecting rod. I'll check if there's any weight difference, and if there is, how much. Then I'll continue assembling. The pistons go onto the connecting rods. The connecting rods are here in this box. They were at the machine shop. So the bushing of the connecting rod was replaced and machined. And the seat for the connecting rod bearings was also machined. You can see they also machined it because these connecting rods had an oval shape. Well, after I install the pistons onto the connecting rods, I'll take out the sleeves, install the seals, and then we'll install the crankshaft. Music! So as we can see, 3 pistons weigh 3,645, they are the heaviest. 2 pistons weigh 3,641, and the lightest one is this one. We have one that weighs 3,637, so the difference is 45 here, 37 there. That's an 8-gram difference, meaning an 8-gram difference out of a weight of 3,600. This can be considered a measurement error. So everything is fine with the pistons. I'm installing the pistons onto the connecting rods. I'm measuring the protrusion of the sleeve above the cylinder block. We see the block is at 0, the sleeve is 8/900ths, then the block is 0 again, the sleeve is 800ths. The block is 0, 800ths, 0. 7 or 8. Also 8. So now I'm taking out the sleeves, installing the seals, and then I'll immediately put in the crankshaft. I've prepared the bearings here, the main and connecting rods. I've prepared the ring, the running oil seal, and the crankshaft. Now I'll put on the ring, blow it out once more, install all the channels and the crankshaft The piston assembly is already prepared as well, so I'll install the pistons right away. pressure testing the cylinder heads from this engine. I've already checked 4, and this is the 5th one. Here by the radiator there are 2 more cylinder heads. One is from this engine, and I sent one out. It's just a spare, you never know. Right now I have 2 engines being repaired, so it's good to have at least 1 cylinder head already resurfaced as a backup. So right now I'm finishing these 7, and then there are 6 more over there. Those are from another engine. 86, only LF09. The block is currently being machined, so I'll work on it later. I just got everything ready here for now. And since the cylinder heads were already prepared for the surface grinding machine, I decided to pressure test them right away, so that later I can just get straight to work. The valve guides and valves, as usual, are supplied with 3-4 atmospheres, give or take. Someone once asked me in the comments why the pressure drops here, why the needle falls, if the air isn't escaping here. Well, somewhere in this assembly, in this spot, air is leaking when the valve is closed. There's still a bit of leakage somewhere here. So the cylinder head has been sitting here for about 5-10 minutes, give or take. I just went out for a smoke and had some tea, so I won't focus on these too much. I've shown it many times before. Now I'm pressure testing the cylinder heads, then I'll rinse them in the washer, and after that I'll need to replace them as well. New valves, all of them, both intake and exhaust, so the cylinder heads will be washed in a fresh solution. I drained the old solution. I had been using it for more than 2 months. I washed and cleaned the washer, tidied everything up here, and now I'm filling it with fresh water. In the comments, people asked what kind of cleaning agent I use for washing. So I want to show you what it is. So for washers with a flip-top lid, for jet type washers, it's the same thing. So the volume here is about 0.8 cubic meters. Depending on the level, for 0.8 cubic meters of water, I use 4 of these 10-liter canisters. The cylinder heads are almost ready. I worked without the camera and replaced the guide bushing. We also have new valves, intake and exhaust. All have already been lapped. I marked each valve. You can see third, second. You can see that each valve has a track from the seat. So I prepared the springs, retainers, washers for the springs, valve stem seals, earling as usual, and the keepers. I'm assembling the cylinder heads, and tomorrow I'll install the heads, put on the valve covers, and tomorrow my engine will be finished. As I said, this repair is a bit unusual. It will all make sense a little later. So the cylinder heads are installed and tightened. We torque them to 80, 90, 150, then 190, marks across, then turn 90 degrees, marks along. All the heads are tightened. Now I'm going to install the rocker arms and push rods. The rocker arms will be completely new. Here's the rocker shaft, and there are 12 rocker arms themselves. Also, there are new washers, adjustment screws and lock nuts. I'll have to take the locking plates from the old ones. I choose a rocker arm, install it and adjust the valves. So I've installed and tightened the rocker arm push rods. Now I'm going to adjust the valves. So we bring the first cylinder to top dead center. We rotate it clockwise during compression. Watch when the intake valve is working and align the mark on the flywheel, or check the sixth cylinder. When the valves on the sixth cylinder are overlapping, one valve finishes closing and the other starts opening. At that moment, the first cylinder will be at top dead center. So during compression in this position, we adjust the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, skip the sixth, adjust the seventh, eighth, skip the ninth, adjust the 10th, and then we make a full 360-degree turn and continue adjusting. The remaining valves are the 4th, 5th, 8th, 9th, and the 11th and 12th. Well, you can just mark a full turn on the pulley, for example, or on the crankshaft and make a full rotation. Well, you can also check by the first cylinder when the valves are overlapping. That is, at the first overlap, the sixth is at top dead center. So if it's compression, then you check the clearances. I set the intake valves to 0.4 and the exhaust valves to 0.6. Well, there's another option. You can use a 0.5 gauge, but just make the intake a little tighter and the exhaust a little looser. However, you need to have experience to do it with just one gauge, or you can just use 0.4 and 0.6. So I adjust the valves and then I move on to the next stage of assembly. This stage will be a bit unusual, as I mentioned earlier, but you'll see everything as we go. So, from the very beginning I said that this is an unusual repair. And what's unusual is that the engine is already ready. That means it's going to the customer in this condition. And then the customer will remove their own engine from the car and partially disassemble it. Well, everything that's missing here, like the water pump all sorts of covers, the pulley, the fan, the heat exchanger, the starter, the compressor, the fuel pump. Basically everything that's missing: the oil pan, the oil pump, the flywheel, the clutch. All of that will be taken off the engine that's currently installed in the car, put onto this engine, and then this engine will be installed in the car. So what we have here is a replacement engine. That's what I originally agreed on with the customer, so I assembled the short block. I haven't had a video like this on my channel before, so I temporarily put on the valves and covers from a Mercedes ones. They have the same mounts. I used them as plugs so I could paint. Now I'm taking off the valves and covers, removing them, and there are some plugs here and there. I'm wrapping the entire engine with stretch film. There's already one engine packed over there. By the way, these are two customers. They both came and brought two engines from the Orenburg region. One engine is fully assembled and the other one is like this. Now I'll pack it the same way, wrap it well with stretch film, because it's going to travel without an oil pan in an open truck bed. So I'll make sure to pack it up properly. I attached some cardboard underneath here so that when I paint, the paint doesn't get in there. I probably won't even remove it. Well, there are some things here. For example, I won't remove anything from the starter either. I'll just unscrew the bolts. For instance, here where the compressor mount is, I screwed in a bolt and these plugs. I'll take everything off, but I won't even remove the tape. I'll send it just like that. The customer will unpack it himself later. So this kind of engine repair is also possible, and the repair of this engine costs this amount. Well, that's considering we have a new camshaft here, new pistons. All the machining work has been done. So you could say the engine turned out perfect. Well, this price also includes the machining work, my labor. So in general, everything as usual. That's it for this video about repairing this engine. That's the video we ended up with. Thank you all for watching. Good luck to everyone. Goodbye.